All right, hey guys, we're in Numbers chapter 12 and 13 today. Um, Anybody who's been around the Bible a little bit, anybody who's kind of been to Sunday school has probably heard this story before. Um, but basically, the Israelites are wandering around the wilderness and they come up to the wilderness of Paran, and God tells Moses to gather a man from each one of the tribes to be spies to go into this area, this land of Canaan, and to spy it out and see, according to chapter 13, verse 18, to see the land and what it is and the people that dwell it therein, whether they be strong or weak or few or many. And then in verse 19, and what the land is that they dwell in, whether it be good or bad, or what cities that they be in and dwell, and so on and so forth. Um, and the whole thing is here is, we have to ask ourselves, God sent them into this city. Was he unaware of whether the land was strong or weak or whatever? No, I mean he's God. It's not like he can't see over the next hill or whatever. Based on the context of this, he sent them in there because he knew what was in the land, and he was giving them opportunity. Now, a lot of times when we think of faith, we think of faith as just a single solitary moment where we choose God or whatever. But faith is not a single solitary moment. Faith is an ongoing thing. It's best, at least in my mind, the best way I see it is faith is a muscle. Um, a muscle that is not used atrophies and weakens. A muscle that is exercised grows stronger, and a muscle that is exercised the same way all the time with the same weight, it becomes stagnant, and it maintains, but it never grows. And that's something that we're told not to do. That we are to be growing constantly. Uh, so when you look at faith from that perspective, you can go back through the apostles' life. You can see that Jesus had appeared to each one of them and had worked miracles so that they would have a basis for faith. And then gradually they would be tested to a lower degree, where their faith would grow. And then you start to see a pattern emerge where a circumstance comes up where they're thrown in jail, and they have to trust God now. Now they have to actually put that muscle into practical use, and then they're rescued from it. And then Paul goes on and stands before the emperor, and you know, by this point, his faith is strong. Whereas if right from the get go, right off the road to Damascus, there, if he had been thrown into that situation where he was ushered into the emperor, his faith wouldn't have been at that point where he was strong enough to be able to deal with that. So what I want to see here is that the same thing is happening in the Exodus here with the Israelites. They've just seen God do all these works. They've seen him pour water out of a rock, and they've seen him make the seas part, and they cross through it and just utterly decimate the Egyptians. They've seen all these things. They've seen miraculous things. So there is a solid basis for their faith. And now they're being given opportunity. It's gym day. They're showing up and they're given an opportunity to go into this land. God knows what's in the land. He knows what he's capable of. But he's giving them an opportunity to see the land for themselves beforehand. This is an opportunity for their faith to grow. And of all the people that came back, of the 12 that came back, only Caleb and Joshua had a good report. According to verse 30, they came back, and Caleb stilled the people because they were all complaining about what was going on in the land. And Caleb stilled the people before Moses and said, "Let us go up at once and possess it, for we are able to overcome it," talking about the people there. But the men that were with him said, but the men that went up with him said, "We be not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we." And this was something that stood out. It was verse 32. It says, "And they brought up an evil report of the land." Now, I have some question about whether or not what is contained in this report is factual, or if it's something that is, maybe they're elaborating. It's not that I doubt that there are giants in this time period. We know from David and Goliath that there were, in fact, giants in that time period. But I get the impression that maybe they're exaggerating, and basically kind of turning the people away, because when you get into chapter 14, it says that the people basically wept at the sound of the report. But he says, "They brought up an evil report of the land which they had searched unto the children of Israel, saying, The land through which we have gone to search it is a land that eateth up the inhabitants thereof." So they're eating their own. "And all the people that we saw in it were men of great stature. And there we saw the giants, the sons of Anak." And that word giants, a lot of people want to go off on rabbit trails there, and you can if you want. It's something you can look into, but that Hebrew word for giants is Nephilim. The Nephilim were a pre-flood people. The Bible says that the Nephilim were basically where the legends of the Greek gods like Zeus and throwing lightning bolts and all this stuff. It says that that the sons of God had their way with the daughters of men, and a lot of people believe that this is talking about the fallen angels had intercourse with human women, and that the offspring from them were these hybrid kind of bastard children that had sort of a blend of human and angelic power, demonic power, and that they became known as the Nephilim. So basically what he's saying here is, and there we saw the giants, the sons of Anak. So we saw the Nephilim, the sons of Anak, which come of the giants, and we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, so we were in their sight. So we've seen bones, and we've found artifacts of people who have been 10, 12 feet tall. There are cases in that time period of giants existing, but you can see right here where he's talking about we're grasshoppers in their sight. At very least, this is an exaggeration, and it's something that is destroying the faith of other people, because when you get into the next verse, it says, "And all the congregation lifted up their voice and cried, and the people wept that night." So they traveled through the wilderness. They've been running around here with God doing this thing for all this time. They get to the land where God tells them you're going to be in, and then here it is, 10 of the 12 people who went up to the land come back and say, yeah, it's not something that we can do. And basically they over exaggerate the strength of the enemy, and as a result they missed out on that opportunity of faith. But Caleb didn't. Caleb and Joshua, it doesn't say in this particular chapter about Joshua, but it does say in the book of Judges, I believe, that Joshua also had a good report. But Caleb and Joshua were the only ones of the people who actually were able to go in and possess the land, because they were the only ones who trusted God. So the kind of the moral of this is be careful the report that you give, that it not destroy the faith of others. Jesus warned about this, about destroying the faith of a little child, and that it would be better that a millstone be hung around that person's neck. Be careful. That's something that we will be held accountable for. but also don't miss the opportunity to exercise your faith. Those opportunities to grow your faith are gifts from God. They're not something to be feared. It's something to grow your faith to that next stage. So, um, just persevere, hang on. All right. God bless.